Hello managers and welcome to Fantasy Football Hub's Game Week 13 predicted lineups and injury news with me, James, and I'm joined by Ben Dinnery. Ben, how's it going, mate?
Fantastic, James. I absolutely love these little one-to-ones on a Friday afternoon. Highlight of my week.
I mean, they're useful for you, aren't they? To speak to an FPL guru like me must be valuable for your team, I'm sure. How was Game Week 12 for you, Ben?
Game week 12 was probably like most of them, utter garbage.
He doesn't have a
Uh,
clue, Ben, what he's
yeah,
how well he's actually done. That's the truth of
I've
it.
got. Let's have a look. Oh, slightly below average.
Okay, story of your
So
life.
we'll take that. I'll
Yeah.
take 6 points for Eric Dyer. I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not bad, is it? How come he got 6 points then? He got subbed off, did he? Before the No, he didn't. He can't have
He
done.
got the assist. He
Oh, he got
must
the
have got the
assist.
assist and a bonus.
Oh, okay. Oh, that weird deflected free kick. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, no.
Such a.
No.
Oh dear.
What are you
Anyway,
about?
well, it's been another eventful week as far as injuries go, so we should get right into it. Just before we do, however, I just want to, well, firstly explain to anyone watching how we get to the injury news article that Ben keeps updated throughout the week prior to each deadline. This is the Fantasy Football Hub homepage. We simply go up to FPL Gameweek 13 tips here. And literally, it's the very top article in this contents table, or you can find it just by scrolling down. Click on here, and here you are. It does look a little bit different this week, and that's because of an integration that we're trialing with starting11.com. And the ultimate idea of this is that these lineups are going to be interactive. So Ben will submit his predicted lineup, and then you can click agree or disagree, enter your own ideas, and this should dynamically reflect that. You can see the percentages beneath each name here. Depending on how many people agree with Ben's choices, these percentages should update automatically. We are, however, as is always the case whenever you try to integrate some new tech, having some teething issues, shall we say, Ben. So what you've said is that obviously injury news will continue as normal, but guys, take these starting 11s with a pinch of salt because the integration hasn't quite completed. Yeah. Is that correct, Ben?
It is. So these are the predicted lineups as of Wednesday. So prior to press conference updates, what you can do if you are looking at this article, you can click on that graphic. That will take you through to the start11.com website, and that will have the updated version of my thoughts on the starting 11. For some reason, it's not getting dynamically pulled through. So that's why we've got the old lineups as it currently stands.
Well, our tech team is on the case, so we're hoping that by next video this will be sorted. But yeah, as Ben says, do give them a click. Check out starting11.com as well. Right, okay, Ben. Shall we kick off as we always do with Arsenal? How are they looking?
Pretty much as you were. Granit Xhaka slightly ahead of schedule. Mikel Arteta said he could return this year, maybe in and around Christmas. Sinead Kolasinac targeting to return to training in January. The major talking points may be in and around that left back position. Obviously, Kieran Tierney's fit. I've got Nuno Tavares in at the moment. You know, any team can, concede 4 goals against the Liverpool. I think it's wise to maybe look beyond that performance and look at how his players got him there and how they've performed, and they maybe require just that little bit of faith from Mikel Antonio. So I don't see too many changes here.
They've got your boys, have they, in game week 13? Is that correct? Newcastle.
They've got an absolutely massive tough game ahead of them on Saturday in the early
This is the real
kickoff.
test. This is the real test. Forget Liverpool.
This is the big guns.
Yeah.
So
yeah, let's see how they get on. In fact, actually, that's one of the cool things about this integration. I've just noticed myself that it actually says versus Newcastle United, which is incredibly helpful for me because I don't have the fixtures up. So that's really handy. Let's have a look at Aston Villa, who are playing Crystal Palace in game week 13. A tough fixture for them. Crystal Palace looking very, very good, particularly at home. I think Aston Villa are visiting Crystal Palace. They do look, however, with the inclusion of Ings, to be getting back to some semblance of full health, Ben.
yeah, look pretty good overall. Generally, Steven Gerrard said the only concern at this moment in time is Bertrand Traore. He's some way off following a setback on the training pitches. We have to be patient with him, was the words that he used. But we have seen Morgan Sanson trained all week, and also Douglas Luiz will be a part of that travelling squad. However, I don't include him in that 11 just because of that lack of fitness and sharpness. And I've more or less stuck with the same 11 following Steven Gerrard's first win. To note, Trezeguet being sidelined since April following a rupture to his anterior cruciate ligament. He's completed 1 full week of training, and he isn't far away from a return for the development side.
Brilliant. It was a very convincing 2-0 win under Gerrard. Tellingly kept a clean sheet, which Aston Villa have not done for some time. Interesting to see how they kick on under him. Brentford. Bless Brentford's hearts. They put 3 past you guys, conceded 3 as well though in game week 12. A great game that was, and looking fairly sturdy based on this predicted 11. Ben, I know you said take it with a pinch of salt, but any injury news that we should note?
Yeah, so as it currently stands in this starting 11, we have Zanka playing on the right-hand side of that back 3. Now, it looks as if Zanka hasn't categorically been ruled out by Thomas Frank, but he's certainly a major doubt due to a muscle problem. So he's one to watch. Like I say, click on the image and you can see the latest updates. But elsewhere, pretty fine. Mads Sorensen and Matthias Jensen, they're both back in contention. But again, they've missed some time, injury and COVID-related absence. So there's just 1 or 2 worries with regards to how sharp they'll be. And I think, after that performance at St James's Park, Thomas Frank may keep faith in the majority of the side.
Good to see Tony finally getting on the score sheet. Another disallowed goal between Mbeumo and Tony, by the way. I don't know what's going on there, but good to see that those 2 are predicted to start up top as normal. Okay, Brighton, they have Leeds United. Could go anyway this game. Difficult one to call. 5:30 kickoff, I believe, on the Saturday. Ben, how are Graham Potter's boys looking?
Yeah, other than long-term absentees, Stephen Alzate and Danny Welbeck, probably due back maybe early January. They may get Welbeck just before, the new year. Robert Sanchez returns following his 1-match ban. So that's good news for Brighton. And generally, yeah, pretty good. There could be a couple of changes in that back line, with the likes of Dan Burn, Webster, all getting back up to fitness. Obviously, Lamptey, Veltman found himself out of the team. So it's been a difficult one to call. I've went with what would be a 4-4-1-1. But like I say, there's a little bit of flexibility in Graham Potter's lineups these days. So I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe, 1 or 2 of those names were shuffled around with players on the fringes of that squad.
Right, yeah. I like how instead of saying Welbeck back, you just said well back, which is those are the kind of time-saving techniques you've got to use when you're as busy as Ben. Burnley facing, it's a tough fixture. It could be a tough fixture in Tottenham, although if their midweek performance say things go by, Burnley may not have the tough time that we're expecting they might. How are Burnley doing, Ben?
2 major talking points, absences of James Tarkowski and Ashley Westwood. Both of those players picked up their 5th yellow card of the season last weekend, so that keeps them out of this one. Ashley Barnes, he's picked up a niggle. Well, he thought it was a niggle initially, but Sean Dyche said now he's going to be out of action. I'm led to believe that could be a fairly lengthy absence. So otherwise, we've got Collins coming into that team and Jack Cork, who's found himself a little bit down the pecking order in recent games. Those 2 players going in. Elsewhere, pretty much remains the same.
Okay, thank you very much. Now then, on to Chelsea with what is probably the most talked about fitness issue of the last week. And that is, of course, the absence of Chilwell. And it does, Ben, if early reports are to be believed, it does look quite bad for him, doesn't it?
Not as bad as it could have been, in all honesty.
Okay.
So we spoke about this earlier in the week. We talked about how Chelsea would want to treat this problem, this setback, non-surgically initially, see what kind of response the player has, then make a decision in around 6 weeks' time after further scans. Like I say, see how that knee's progressing. It is a partial tear of that anterior cruciate ligament. So, like I say, it's not a full rupture, which ordinarily, in the majority of cases, would require the player to go for surgery straight away and will almost rule him out, for a minimum of 7, 8, 9 months. In this instance, if Ben Chilwell responds well during this initial sort of 4 to 6 week period, then it is possible that he could return this season. But like I say, it's a wait and see for this moment in time. But out for the remainder of the year in the very first instance.
Right, okay. And we do, for anyone who owns him, and I know that was, I think, 50% of the top 10k prior to his injury, we do have a Best Chilwell Replacements article on the site, free to read. I'll link it down below in the description. Ben, I know I don't want to keep referring to these lineups, but I am interested in Pulisic there at the top. For Havertz owners, and there are plenty of them, potentially considering a move away from Havertz, would you endorse it this week with the likes of Jota and co looking so tempting?
Difficult one because Thomas Tuchel, when asked directly about Kai Havertz, sort of skated over it. Other priorities, of course, were the likes of Kante, Chilwell, as we've mentioned, Lukaku. What we know about Havertz is that he was kept out of the midweek Champions League tie as a precautionary measure after complaining of a tight hamstring. Now, if your glass is half full, you might think good news, no news is good news. If it's half empty, then you think, maybe you would miss out this one. Always difficult with hamstring problems. What we know, or certainly, what we understand with the injury, it's not serious and it's not long term. So even if it's out of game week 13, then he could return for game week 14 in those midweek games. So I would be tempted just to hold for this moment in time. But I do like Jota as a punt, obviously with Roberto Firmino sidelined currently, because he does looked locked in one of the best attacks in the league.
And playing Southampton as well. We'll get to Liverpool quite shortly. Interesting to see how Chelsea's defence fare without Kante. I know Kovacic, I think, has been ruled out as well for that game against Man United. Will Man United be rejuvenated under new management? Crystal Palace. They are becoming more and more popular. We did see Milivojevic start, as you predicted last week, Ben, alongside Gallagher. Didn't really seem to affect Gallagher's attacking output, though. He was unlucky to only come away from that game with an assist. And you've got the two of them starting again in that middle three, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, the one concern here is Jeffrey Sloop. Again, we've been unable to update this lineup. Patrick Vieira did flag out and highlight Will Hughes. Hasn't had any involvement since his arrival from Watford. Says he's been training really, really well on a training pitches. And he's one of the players that has put himself in the shop window. So possibly Jeffrey Sloop out for Will Hughes. And of course, I've got Elise in the right-hand side of that three up front, making way for Ayew. But, Patrick Vieira's been flip-flopping between the two, for the last few game weeks. So that may be one to watch.
I think I'm going to bring in Benteke, Ben. Do you own him?
Yes, in several formats.
Yeah, okay. You must have had an enjoyable game week 12 then, I suppose. Well, you've already said below average, but I suppose Benteke probably kept it from being awful.
Benteke, I've had him, in and around most of my fantasy teams since last season. This guy's a legend. I told you, Ben 10, said it at the start of the season, sound bited, it's up there. These are just very, very slow to the party.
Yeah. That's the thing with Ben's advice, is that it germinates over the course of 12 game weeks. Never take it for the short term. Okay, Everton. And interesting to see that, I know there was some news today, Ben, wasn't there, about Calvert-Lewin. Is that correct, or am I making that up?
Well, there was an update as such, but not that he's going to be considered for this game week or in the very near future. It's light training. So he's been spotted down at Finch Farm doing some work away from the main group with the likes of Damari Gray and also Andre Gomez, but still far too soon. And of course, Richarlison is suspended this week as well. So the likelihood is Rafa's got two options, really. He said he would go with experience, which means we've got either Cenk Tosun or Salomon Rondon. I've went for Rondon. And also there's question marks with regards to Brazilian midfielder Alan. It didn't come up as part of yesterday's press conference. We understand he was getting treatment for a muscle issue, although Rafa said he was fairly optimistic that he would be involved. If he was to miss out, and like I say, it's a big if because he's fairly confident, but it could mean that Doucouré is thrown straight back into that Everton starting lineup, just given the injuries that they've got elsewhere. Doucouré obviously coming off the back of a metatarsal problem. And Rafa also said, well, the risks associated with a foot injury aren't that of maybe soft tissue and muscle problems. And therefore, I'm more likely to take a risk and start him if needs be.
Okay, and what's the news on Damari Gray? Obviously came off very early in Game Week 12's fixture. Is it not as bad as first thought, perhaps?
Well, exactly that. Had a first scan. Initial thoughts it could be around maybe 4 to possibly 6 weeks. An adductor issue. Waited a couple of days, settled down, went for a second scan, revealed that it wasn't as bad as initially thought. He was down at like I say, at Finch Farm doing some light work away from the group. Now again, I think it's highly unlikely that he'll play this weekend, but that certainly doesn't mean that he couldn't be back in maybe game week 14 or possibly game week 15. So good news in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much. Leeds United playing Brighton, and the main talking point here around Leeds is Rafinha missed the Sunday fixture against Spurs, much to the surprise, I think, of a lot of his owners. He was ill, Ben, is that correct?
He was ill. I mean, the Rodrigo and the Rafinha injury and illness related stuff completely went under the radar. Whether they were late problems that just cropped up or whether Marcelo Bielsa chose to keep those problems to himself. But good news is they're all back. And also Jamie Shackleton, they all returned to the Leeds United squad. Of course, Patrick Bamford, he remains absent. Marcelo Bielsa talked about the severity of that ankle problem suffered by Bamford and, the damage that was caused. And that's why it's having an impact on the evolution of his injury, which in turn is having a knock-on effect and trying to sort of pin down a specific time frame. So nothing definitive with regards to that for the moment. However, I'm still working in and around mid-December based on his comments last month with regards to Robin Koch and coming back before him.
Yes, the Robin Koch barometer of injuries that Bielsa uses. Okay, Leicester City playing Watford should be a good fixture for them. Although you never know which Watford you're going to get. Tell me about Leicester, Ben. Anything we should know as FPL managers?
Johnny Evans might be attracting a bit of interest from the community. He was pulled from the starting lineup ahead of the Legia Warsaw Europa League tie game on Thursday. Now, Brendan Rodgers said that was an issue in the warm-up. Evans was complaining of a little bit of discomfort in his thigh, but it was purely a precautionary measure, and he fully expects him to be in the lineup this weekend. Yuri Tielemans and Ricardo Pereira, they're in and around 2 to 3 weeks away. They're the two major sort of injury talking points for the Foxes.
Okay, FPL managers, if you're watching this and you are considering Johnny Evans, please comment below and explain why. I would love to hear your reasoning ahead of bringing in a Leicester player. Right, Liverpool and Robbo. I mean, they had the luxury of being able to rest a few of the key names in midweek, Ben, which came as no surprise. Concerning to see Salah and Mane both start in that game, although I suppose for most managers, the doubt here is over Diogo Jota, isn't it? It's looking fairly certain now. We suspect that he's going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely fine. I mean, he trained ahead of the midweek Champions League tie against Porto, so there was no issues there. Purely precautionary measure. No need to throw him in unnecessarily. With regards to Mo Salah and Mane, what we do know about these players perform really well when they have a high number of minutes or load in their legs. They're typical sort of freaks in that regard. When they've picked up injuries, historically, it's when they've been rested or when they've had a downturn in the number of involvement and the number of minutes. So these guys like to play on the threshold and play at a high intensity regularly. They respond really well to that. No fresh injury concerns for Liverpool. Trent got a good rest midweek. Robbo got some minutes from the bench. James Milner got minutes from the bench. Henderson got again, some more game time following his adductor problem. So looking, quite well. And Thiago got himself a goal, more minutes. He's looking fresh and sharp since he's coming back from that muscle problem as well.
God, that stuff about Salah is just music to FPL managers' ears. Why can't every FPL asset be as reliable? Speaking of reliability, let's talk about Pep's Man City. And I suppose, well, it may have came as a surprise to a few, actually. Phil Foden did start Game Week 12 fixture, was subbed off, I think it was around the 58th minute on 1 point, which must have been frustrating for his owners. Ben, I don't know whether this might have changed since the press conferences today, but as of Wednesday, Foden was out of your predicted 11. Are you more confident about him starting now, or are you standing by that?
I look, it's difficult, and I made the point last week. At the minute, Jack Grealish and Phil Foden aren't training with the squad, so they're training individually. And when you have a team that still has one more session to go, then you're having to fill in the spaces and potentially sort of, make an educated guess on where we stand. Based on what we know up until this point, as of Friday, if you were asked, I'd have to say no. I would say, that Pep doesn't take that chance with City having a midweek game. And he keeps him out the firing line. I said the same last week, and maybe he should have. And almost I felt justified in the fact that he went off because of that knock. He only passed a late fitness test on the Saturday. It shows maybe his importance and his form to this Manchester City team. But I just think, is he going to risk him 2 weeks in a row? Maybe not when you've got other players in and around that squad who are coming into a little bit of form. Kevin De Bruyne is the other player who's definitely out this weekend. We've had about 7 days in isolation. Hopefully in around that 10th, 11th day, he can submit a negative PCR test, and come back in contention and start training with the team.
Okay, thank you very much. On to Manchester United, and of course, Solskjaer no longer at the wheel. We're looking at their new manager, but potentially, Ben, similar lineup.
We have Luke Shaw. I've got Luke Shaw out of the starting 11 at left back, so I've got Alex Telles starting. Of course, he took a second blow to the head against Watford, high velocity ball to the back of his head. Now, we still don't know whether his absence midweek was concussion related or whether it was purely precaution, given the fact that he had picked up a concussion in the Manchester derby. Even though you have return to play timelines and enhanced care settings, that doesn't necessarily mean that the brain has fully healed within those time frames. So taking a second blow to the head could have ended up being quite a serious little matter, and we haven't seen Luke Shaw back on the training pitches. So it wouldn't surprise me, again, if Michael Carrick decided not to risk him. And also question marks with regards to Fred. I think it was against Villarreal in the first half, rolled his ankle, looked quite a nasty one, but he managed to continue. He played 90 minutes. But as with a lot of injuries, once you're out the heat of the battle, once that adrenaline starts to dissipate, the injury evolves. That's quite a painful, nasty one. So he's question marks over his availability due to that ankle sprain.
Okay, and of course, not that it will be of much interest to FPL managers, but Maguire also out on suspension after his red. Okay, Newcastle, Ben, and I suppose a lot of the main injury news when it comes to Newcastle actually didn't pertain to any of their players, but instead Eddie Howe, who missed his first game on the touchline due to COVID. Do we have any news on Eddie Howe? Will he be on the touchline for their fixture against Arsenal?
Eddie Howe will be back at the wheel. He's in the dugout this weekend. Not really sure how that's worked out. The news broke late on Friday night. That's just 7 days. So he has submitted a negative PCR test, but I was under the understanding that protocol should have still meant 10 days away from the group. But look, he's there. Jason Tyndall confirms he is with the squad. There were slight concerns over Fabian Schär, who was forced off last weekend, hamstring issue. Jason Tyndall confirmed that it's only Paul Dummett that's out of the team with regards to injury, although Dwight Gale will have a late test. I've got Martin Dubravka returning in goal ahead of Carl Darlow. And I've also included Ryan Fraser in that team. I was a little bit surprised he didn't start, given his relationship with Eddie Howe, and also the fact that he had that brilliant sort of combination with Callum Wilson down at Bournemouth. He came on, he provided the assist, he got us a draw. So therefore, I have got him starting this weekend as the only change, only outfield change.
Thank you very much. On to Norwich, and we won't spend too long here, Ben, but how are they doing?
Yeah, pretty good. We've seen the two main benefactors under Dean Smith would be Billy Gilmore and Cantwell. Gilmore starts again. What we've seen, Cantwell was withdrawn after at half-time last weekend. That's purely down to his fitness. He missed a large chunk due to personal issues, and he's been managing an Achilles problem since then. So that's why I've got Lees Melu in instead of Cantwell. But that could be the one where Dean Smith just wants to throw him, Cantwell in there to build up his minutes, or he could introduce him from the bench.
Tricky fixture against Wolves for Norwich, although 2 wins on the bounce for them is something to be hopeful for. Okay, Southampton, maybe the hardest fixture of the season for them, away at Anfield. Their assets aren't going to be that popular this week, so again, Ben, we won't spend too long here. Any major news we should know?
Not really. Jack Stevens has been back on the training pitches this week, but Ralph Hasenhüttl urges caution given the amount of time that he's spent out. And also he said, he likes how his team's performed defensively, so there's no guarantees that he will come straight back in once he is fully fit.
Brilliant. On to Tottenham Hotspur. An embarrassing 2-1 defeat in their European tie on Thursday night. Son was rested for that game. Kane, however, did start. I assume, Ben, that there's no way that's going to jeopardise any chance of him getting 90 minutes again at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely not. Kane's up there with the Mo Salahs and the Manes of this world, and he's almost like a set and forget for the domestic club sides. The question marks, you could maybe look at Tanganga in that back line. Christian Morero, he looks as if he's going to be out for at least the remainder of the year. Needs a second scan to determine the extent of his hamstring problem. Sanchez could come into there. I've also brought Oliver Skipp back into that midfield, but it could be Harry Winks or even Dembele. I know he was part of that team on Thursday night, so maybe some of those players shouldn't be in and around that starting 11 for the Premier League.
Okay, Watford. Now then, they are playing Leicester, and after that 4-1 victory against 4-1 win against Manchester United, their assets are starting to be looked at. I saw Holly Shan talking about potentially bringing in King this week. The main news, however, is an asset that was popular maybe 8 or 9 game weeks ago, Ben, and that's Ismaila Sarr. What's the latest on him?
Unfortunately, Sarr is actually ruled out. He picked up a knee injury in that challenge by Donny van de Beek. It looked as if there was some involvement of potentially MCL, that medial collateral ligament. Doesn't appear to be too serious, although the club confirmed that evaluation is ongoing. So we're hoping it's going to be on the shorter period of recovery rather than anything more sort of sinister and long term. At the back, and Kulo, he suffered a hamstring problem, and the club, like I say, said that could be out for a while. So that's disappointing. As for with regards to Josh King, I was on him weeks ago as well. So, why bother even come to the party if it's going to be this late? It's over, man. It's done.
Did you have him when he scored that hat-trick?
I did captain him. I captained him in, can I mention other platforms? In another platform, Josh King was my captain.
Fan team.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want you mentioned him, fan team around these parts. Okay, West Ham. And again, we saw some key players rested for their Europa League tie, including Mikel Antonio. And actually, on a quick glance, Ben, this looks fairly similar to what we saw in Game Week 12.
Yeah, look, in terms of the squad fitness, only Angelo Ogbonna is the only long-term absentee, ACL. Everybody else is pretty much as you were. As you mentioned, Mikel Antonio was rested, and also Fabianski was, had a night off on Thursday. So those players should be fully refreshed with one eye on those upcoming games.
Lovely job. Okay. And last but not least, Wolverhampton Wanderers have maybe the best fixture of the week, travelling to Carrow Road. And again, this is looking fairly steady, Ben.
You could maybe look at the left-hand side with Ait Nouri. He kept out Marcal last week. Bruno Lage said that he trusts Ait Nouri. He's put in some good performances. That could remain, although Marcal has a good, solid week of training under his belt. The only other position that I really see up for grabs is at number 10 with Daniel Pedence. We've seen Adama Traore or Trincao being deployed on the right-hand side. But elsewhere, pretty much as you were. Willy Bolly suffered a setback on the training pitches this week, but once it seems a long time ago he was a staple of that Wolves backline, hasn't actually played a Premier League minute this season.
Okay. Ben, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking us through all 20 teams. And like I say, guys, do go and head over to our predicted lineups article. It's updated pretty much throughout the week, to be fair. And hopefully we'll get these integration issues sorted, and you'll not only be able to see Ben's predicted lineup, but maybe submit some of your feedback as well, because you don't get enough feedback, Ben, when it comes to your predicted lineup.
and it's all fantastic. I love every single comment.
Brilliant. Well, Ben, I appreciate it. I know you're always busy on these Friday afternoons, so thanks for sparing half an hour of your time for the Hub. Guys, if you appreciate Ben's efforts, do give this video a like. And I don't know what we'll do next week, Ben, in terms of a video, given how quick the turnaround is. But if we can, hopefully we'll get to talk maybe Tuesday morning, perhaps. I'll be in touch with you. But guys, do look out for something next week. And in the meantime, good luck for Game Week 13. Enjoy it. Ben, I'll see you soon, mate.